Next up, we have a presentation from Tasman Minerals, an upcoming IPO, which is an Australian-based and battery metals explorer, rather. To tell us more, I will now hand you over to Managing Director, Noor Crookshanks. Good afternoon, Noor.
Thanks very much, Jane, and thank you everyone for attending today. I'm very excited. First slide, please. So we're an emerging Australian base metals and battery minerals explorer and developer, and that pictured on the slide is one of our projects. It's the Earaheedy meteor crater, which is roughly around about 1.6 billion years old. So we've got the northeast corner of that crater as one of our projects. So our disclaimer, so we are approaching IPO. So we're not a listed company as yet, and a bit more detail on that further on. So why are we different in terms of other exploration development companies? We believe the premier jurisdictions of our projects. We have 5 projects. They're in Paterson Province, Fraser Range, and Earaheedy Basin. And for those of you familiar with the landscape, they're probably some of the best provinces to be in, and certainly Australia is one of them. We have an experienced board and team. Plenty of ASX experience and battery materials and base metals experience. We're pursuing green energy, electrification and decarbonisation materials. Obviously, there's a significant demand, particularly given the current scenario with the geopolitics happening in Europe, and that's accelerating. So the demand is there, and we're certainly going to try and assist in meeting those requirements. Our priority exploration targets, there's a range of elements that we're chasing: copper, nickel, manganese, amongst others, and DMM, and a little bit more about that in a moment. We have one target or prospect, if you say, high-grade manganese, which is close to infrastructure. It's undrilled, untested, and we're very excited about that. The other, I guess, flagship opportunity from a target perspective is potential near-term cash flow from an operating asset opportunity in Queensland. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail, but it's taking an approach of a low carbon footprint and a potential electric mine of the future approach. We are an ESG-centric business, so unlike, I guess, others, we have taken ESG and embraced it, and it's part of our DNA going forward. So we've got aspirations around carbon neutral status, joining the UN Global Compact, and integrating ESG thinking in our mine of the future designs. And perhaps the most important aspect is risk mitigation. We believe the quality of our Australian portfolio of projects, the location, the multi-commodity exposure, and the impact of exploration upside, together with near-term development, is compelling for most investors. We have an experienced board of directors. There's over 80 years of experience on the board. Richard Beasley is a mining engineer, plenty of experience with Sandfire Resources, Peak Resources, and currently with Troy Resources. So very well experienced in base metals as well as battery materials. Dennis Trellin is an economist, plenty of ASX experience with Ashburton Minerals, Platypus Minerals, and he was instrumental in terms of the Libitico transaction. So plenty of corporate experience there. Myself, I've spent metallurgist by background, and spent a number of years at BHP and BlueScope, and of recent times in mining services, so project engineering, construction, and design. So combined, we have a excellent relationship. We've known each other for a number of years, work very well as a team, and complement our skill sets and experience. Sustainable development is our core belief. So we are looking through the lens in terms of all of our activities, from exploration through to development, and also acquiring and divesting assets. We are looking at it from an ESG lens. So we're certainly embracing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, 17 there. We have a clearly defined approach towards ESG in our business, and our objectives really is to try and capture carbon neutrality as a goal within the first 12 to 24 months. As indicated, we're looking at joining the UN Global Compact. That's approximately 15,000 businesses globally around the world. Not too many exploration companies certainly are members currently. We are going to develop an ESG strategy in the first 12 months of post-IPO, and audit our performance against our peers and what is best performance around the globe. So battery market growth is driving global metal demand. And I won't dwell too much on this because I think people have certainly been exposed to what's happening in this space. But by 2050, it's predicted that 95% of vehicles are going to be renewable energy based, whether it's electric or hydrogen based. If we look at what's happening in the battery space, raw materials specifically, your typical phone has got 5 to 7 grams of copper, for example. All the way through to a hybrid vehicle, which is 40 to 80 kilograms, depending on the design. And for a charging station, which there's going to be a lot more of them going forward, you're looking at greater than 600 kilograms per station. So significant growth and demand is predicted. The battery market's currently growing at about 15% per annum and has been and looks to accelerate going forward. So as I mentioned to you, we've got a portfolio of 5 quality projects that we believe has high impact upside. And in fact, out of the 5, our thinking is that there's 3 company makers out of the 5 projects. So Copper Canyon is a flagship exploration project based in the Paterson Province. We'll talk a bit more detail in a moment. The Iron Skarn project is a flagship pre-development. So even though we're exploration, we're also a development opportunity as well. And there's some exciting news around that pre-development opportunity I'll talk about in a moment. Mount Minnie, we're chasing a high-grade manganese, and there's been a little bit of work there that's got us excited. Fraser Range project, that's a pure exploration play, as well as Crater project, which you saw the satellite image. So Paterson Province. Prior to Rio Tinto's Winu discovery in 2018, it probably hasn't really been heard of to any large extent, but Winu certainly put it on the map. And what a major tier 1 discovery that was, 500 million tonnes, grading at significant copper and gold and silver. A couple of challenges in that space, particularly with cover in that part of the world. But it's now well regarded as elephant country, and it's dominated by a range of majors operating in that space. Now, one of our projects, the Copper Canyon project, we've been able to secure 502 square kilometres in what we believe to be quite prospective ground. So 502 square Ks, we're centrally located, it's under application, but a couple of points there around access. In the exploration game, gaining access to your tenements is certainly a significant cost driver, and being next to a well-developed Telfer highway certainly gives us advantages in terms of getting access to the tenements to do exploration cost effectively. Neurology I'll touch on in a moment, but we're certainly in the Paterson Province next to some very significant players in exploration and development. So there's a range of existing tier 1 mines and resources, and certainly the active exploration environment is gaining in intensity going forward. What's got us excited around Copper Canyon is the 2 gravity images on this slide. The bottom slide depicts the gravity image for the Winu deposit, which was discovered by Rio Tinto. And the top gravity image shows the Copper Canyon project that Tiger Tasman has secured. And there's certainly some exciting structures there. So the gravity edge on structural positions on both the western and eastern edges of our tenements suggests there's 2 significant anomalies there that you definitely want to learn more about. So that we're excited, and certainly the potential for a significant mineralisation and potential resource there is very exciting from our perspective. And once again, being next to the Telfer Highway, we have great access to our tenement, and cost-effective exploration is what we're going to be targeting. As I mentioned, it's our neighbours are very interesting and very busy right now. So if you look at the blue outline of where our tenements are in the centre of that picture, that's the Copper Canyon project. We are bordered by some very well respected producers and explorers. So on 3 sides we have Rio Tinto or Rio Tinto joint ventures. We're very close to Greatland Gold, Rumble, and a whole range of other players here like Newcrest and Cyprium. And what's interesting about this province is that there's been some significant corporate transactions in terms of deals and farming arrangements and significant numbers. So we're very excited about the prospect of doing some geophysics and early stage exploration there. We believe that it's a high potential opportunity in terms of discovery, and we've got a well mapped out plan going forward. So I mentioned to you about a near-term opportunity for development, and that revolves around dense medium magnetite. Now, not very familiar amongst most people is DMM. So it's an industrial mineral, and it's a concentrated form of magnetite. And what it's used for is to wash coal to help reduce the carbon footprint for end customers. So if you're a power station burning thermal coal or a steel maker using metallurgical coal, you want to have washed coal in order to reduce your own carbon emissions when you consume the coal. And that's linked back to the COP26 agenda, which has been signed on by a range of different utilities and steelmaking companies. And obviously, with ESG taking more prominence in business today, they've got their own internal targets. So it's in great demand. Our project is located in Queensland. That market, as we understand it, is 200,000 tonnes plus per annum, and it's 100% imported. So our opportunity with the Iron Skarn project, which is what we've secured, we believe we have the potential to disrupt this market by providing local supply at the doorstep of the coal miners, using a low operating cost and low carbon footprint model based on a mine of the future concept. And we're very excited about that prospect. So a little bit about the Iron Skarn project. It's within 40 kilometres of Townsville, which puts it in a great position in terms of infrastructure, ports, railways, power, if required. There's been significant IP generated on that project. So it was previously held by Strategic Minerals PLC, which was an AIM-listed company. They spent in excess of 5 million Australian dollars in generating IP on that. So it's very well, explored and researched to an extent where they're able to declare a JORC resource, JORC 2012 mineral resource for Iron Glen, and that was done by TerraSearch. In terms of the Iron Glen deposit, there's been just under 6,000 metres of RC and DDH drilling undertaken on it. It's very well researched. The wireframes in that bottom diagram shows you just the amount of drilling that's been done around that resource. But what's got us excited is the internal scoping study, which has been undertaken on the Iron Glen resource, using quite a simple circuit in terms of processing, utilising green energy, whether that's electric and battery or hydrogen and battery, and looking at a relatively modest cost for development, suggests that there's a very attractive free cash flow and pre-tax NPV arising from it. So our next step, obviously, is post-IPO is to complete due diligence on the scoping study assumptions, and we believe that we can move to a DFS very quickly from that point. There's been a number of other interested parties wanting to talk to us about the project, so we'll be engaging in conversations going forward once we've done those preliminary steps. So quite apart from a development opportunity, Iron Skarn offers us a significant exploration opportunity as well, and that's the Lead Belly prospect. And that the gravity image that you can see there down the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the Iron Glen resource, and above it is what we call the Lead Belly prospect. It's untested magnetic anomaly. There's been 3 drill holes sunk into it. We found some very interesting results. We believe it's highly prospective, certainly from a resource perspective, and potentially to help us enlarge the resource measure for the overall project. So there's a significant upside from an exploration perspective, we believe, through Lead Belly. So Mount Minnie, I mentioned about high-grade manganese. This tenure is about 30 square kilometres. It's just outside of Onslow, about 120 k's. Running past our tenement is the Northwest Coastal Highway, so great accessibility. It was previously held by Shaw River, an ASX-listed exploration company. They did some preliminary exploration, surface sampling. They identified over 41.1% manganese in some of these samples. We believe it's highly prospective for manganese mineralisation. It's certainly got some dolomite geology and structure which mimics that of Woody Woody. Certainly we're looking at in the initial post-IPO period to do a bit more detailed work around surface sampling. So the Fraser Range project, quite exciting. We've got 124 square kilometres of highly prospective tenement there next to Nova Nickel, which is approximately 60 kilometres away from our tenements. There's been very limited base metals and gold exploration undertaken to date. So certainly the scope there is significant. There's been a number of shear zones and fault lines running through our tenement, and Mindex suggests there's significant nickel, copper and zinc anomalies in that region. So we're quite excited about pursuing that exploration going forward. The Crater project, so that was quite the distinct satellite picture that was on the cover of our presentation. As you can see, our tenement is there on the northeast quadrant of the crater itself. The ground was, underexplored. Certainly there hasn't been too much work done. It's 40 square k's. We're relatively close to Rumble Resources there and their Earaheedy joint venture. Major faults and crater structures are within our tenements. And post-IPO, we're looking at detailed aeromagnetics and soil sampling to discover it. But there's certainly been indications there, as you can see. There's gold, iron ore, copper, lead, zinc, and manganese in relative close proximity to our tenements. So once again, quite an exciting opportunity. So as I indicated earlier on, we're approaching IPO. This is our indicative capital structure and use of funds. We're looking to raise between 5.1 up to a maximum of 8 million. In terms of holders, the board is certainly quite prominent there. We have great confidence in these projects, and we're certainly committed in delivering value for all shareholders, including ourselves. So we've certainly got significant interest there. So indicative timetable and exploration spend. So I might touch on the exploration spend. Copper Canyon and Iron Skarn are the two flagship projects that we'll be pursuing in earnest post-IPO. We've got a well-developed exploration strategy going forward. The Fraser Range, the Mount Minnie and the Crater projects are certainly in ranking. So Fraser Range with the surface sampling of 41.1% manganese is of great interest to us. So we're going to spend a bit more time and effort in terms of exploring that. Mount Minnie and Crater is probably more geophysics and geochemical exploration in the initial stages, with a view to addressing those in earnest in year 2. In terms of indicative timetable, we're looking at lodging our prospectus in early April, and hopefully closing that off by the end of April and listing in around early or mid-May. So that's a timeline. So why do we believe the opportunity is significant? So when we compare ourselves to our peers, a number of distinctions come out. Number one is Tasman Minerals is offering 5 quality projects. So we're not a single project exploration development company. In terms of the opportunity there, so we're not only exploration, but we're also development. So a pre-development opportunity exists that we want to pursue, and potentially that will generate near-term cash flows. In terms of the primary metals, we're not a single commodity explorer, we're a multi-commodity explorer. So when you combine that from a portfolio perspective, we're de-risked significantly. And when we look at our forecast market cap and EV, it compares very well to our peers, and we believe it's compelling. So if you need any further information, please feel free to contact us. There's some contact details there. And that's really the end of it, Jane. Thank you.
Noor, thank you for the great presentation. We've run slightly over time, but I will jump into one quick question. So how quickly could iron Skarn get into production? And based on your internal estimates, how much material could it produce and for what kind of life of mine?
Yeah, certainly. So look, the initial scoping study was based around a life of mine around about 7 to 8 years. We're looking at a high quality product, so the volumes are not significant. We're predicting in the scoping study approximately 55 to 60,000 tonnes per annum of dense media magnetite. And time frame, look, we are aiming for something in the order of 24 to 36 months.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today, Noor. And a copy of today's recording will be available online in the coming days.
Thanks very much, Jane.